Oh dear.
What's wrong?
You're quite beautiful.
Did I die?
I weighed 300 pounds and thought I was sent to a black hospital, but I didn't expect that I would travel to a world where fat is beautiful. My name is Natalie. At this moment, all the men on the street looked at me and their eyes were full of passion and admiration.
Very chic.
I was so scared that I quickened my pace and wanted to escape from this weird atmosphere, but I didn't pay attention and bumped into a stretched Lincoln. I was standing up in a hurry, but I didn't expect the car door to open suddenly, and a domineering president rushed down aggressively, asking me anxiously if I was injured. I wanted to get angry and say a few words, but I was stunned when I saw his face clearly. He was my boss, William. I remember that he looked at me with disgust yesterday, and his words were cold. But now, his eyes were so gentle that they seemed to drip honey, and he even insisted on giving me a ride. I couldn't believe my ears. This was a treatment I never dared to imagine. I used to be just an insignificant fat guy in his eyes, but now he treats me as carefully as a princess. I began to wonder if I was hallucinating. When we returned to the alley I was familiar with, I couldn't believe my eyes. The alley that was once full of garbage and smelled bad is now covered with flowers, clean and tidy, as if it were a scene that would only appear in a fairy tale. William got out of the car, wrote his phone number on a delicate petal, gently tore it off and handed it to me, asking me to contact him at any time. He only wrote one number on each petal, and I didn't know the correct number sequence at all.
But there's only one you, so.
Back then, I thought that the story of Cinderella would only happen on the screen forever. Now I find that I seem to have become the girl chosen by the prince. But all the surprises are far more than that. When I stepped into the house, I froze. The small, cramped, damp and moldy rental house had long disappeared, replaced by a 500 square meter mansion. The refrigerator was filled with my favorite ice cream. Brand name clothes were neatly arranged on the shelves, and every pair of high heels was exactly my size. I finally calmed my shocked heartbeat, but my mind was still in a mess. It was not until the neighbor's knock on the door broke the silence.
Screaming!
Donnie, how did you get in here?
Someone said gay Beetlejuice 3 times and then I magically appeared.
In a world where thinness is beautiful, my figure is like an invisible yoke that makes it difficult for me to move forward in the workplace. Although I am fat, my designs were once well known in the industry. Facing the ridicule of my colleagues, although I was unwilling because of my excessive inferiority complex, I always subconsciously tried to please them just to gain a little sense of existence. Even my assistant, who was lazy and chasing idle dramas all day, I never dared to criticize him in person. I thought that as long as I worked hard enough, I could win respect with my talent. But when I walked into the meeting room with confidence with my design work, the new boss recognized me as an assistant who ran errands in public and even belittled my image without hesitation. At that moment, the pride in my heart collapsed completely. I have been trying to prove myself, but no one even remembers my name. This world wears tinted glasses for fat girls, and under this gaze, my only support is George, who grew up with me. George never disliked me because of my figure. I used to imagine that maybe he could see my true self, not just the fat me, but the me with ideas and dreams. In this harsh world, I long for love, longing to be favored by fate, like the heroine in idle dramas, and have a tall, rich, and handsome man who belongs only to me. But reality never gives me room for fantasy, not even a man who looks at me straight in the eye.
You know, even if he noticed you, you wouldn't notice him noticing you.
What does that mean?
It means that you're blind to love. You don't even see it.
Until that day, I found a man looking at me frequently on the subway on my way home. I thought I had finally waited for love. My heartbeat began to speed up involuntarily, and I couldn't help but greet him shyly. But unexpectedly, the other party suddenly punched me and tried to snatch my bag. I realized that this was a robbery, but my weight of 300 kilograms is not a joke, and the robber couldn't break free from my hand that was suppressing him. Finally, I kicked him in the crotch and he rolled on the ground in pain. I wanted to pat my butt and leave, but the moment I turned around, my head hit the iron pillar heavily. When I woke up again, the world had completely changed. I became a fashion goddess admired by everyone, and men were obsessed with me. The world seemed to have rewritten the rules. Fat is beautiful. When I stepped into the familiar company, even the air was different. Brother Who carefully served me coffee, and the assistant reported to me eagerly. I became a senior star designer in this world. The identity, status, and respect were all in front of me, but I couldn't laugh. I waited for George to appear with great difficulty and hurriedly told him everything. I may have traveled through time. This world treats me as a heroine, I have everything: career, mansion, beauty, and countless suitors, but my inner confusion has never stopped.
I think that's a good thing though, right?
Maybe in theory, but this is some kind of parallel universe. This isn't our office.
I once longed for this kind of life, but now I find that it is far less simple than I imagined. I went to the subway station again, trying to recreate the night of robbery, hoping to return to the original world. But I was treated as a lunatic and finally sent to the police station for crossing the security line. No one believed me, and I couldn't remember anyone's phone number. Just when I was desperate, I suddenly remembered the number William wrote on the pedals. I threw the pedals into the air with a glimmer of hope, and unexpectedly they really arranged into a clear number in the air. I dialed the number on the pedals, and William's gentle and urgent voice came from the other end of the phone. He was as happy as if he had won the lottery and asked me to meet immediately. I was very sure that this was not reality. I used to think that as long as I found true love in this absurd world, I could break the curse and return to reality like the heroine in the Idol drama. Since William is the most ideal object in everyone's eyes, he may be my answer. For this date that may change my fate, I spent a full 5 hours dressing myself up carefully.
Wow. Natalie, you look beautiful.
No, I just threw this together.
William arrived as promised, and he took me to the luxurious cruise ship. After dinner, we walked hand in hand on the street, and the neon lights were reflected on the water. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. The koi outside the window broke my fantasy with a splash. When we walked out of the store, I stumbled, and William supported me. The moment our eyes met, we couldn't help but kiss each other. But just when I thought I was finally waiting for true love, time suddenly started to fast forward. I finally realized that William was not the true love that could bring me back to reality. Since I didn't wait for the Prince Charming, I turned all my attention to my career. In this world, my fatness has never been a problem, and my design talent is the real light. I want everyone to know that I am not only a fat girl, but also an amazing designer.
It's open.
George is still by my side. He will remember my favorite dumplings and guard them silently as before. Only when I am with him can I take off all disguises and be the most authentic myself. That day, our hands accidentally touched each other and we were both startled. For the first time, I looked at him seriously, the person I always regarded as an ordinary friend. Perhaps he is my destiny. Just as I was lost in thought, William suddenly pushed the door open. George saw him and understood everything instantly. He didn't say anything, but just stood up and left silently. Looking at his back, I was a little reluctant. However, not long after, I found out that William didn't love me at all. He just valued my talent and thought I was beautiful, but he was never moved. He even felt that it didn't matter whether we were in love or not, and getting married and having children was just the result of a proper match. My dignity was trampled again, and I subconsciously went to George to confide in him. Unfortunately, he had already announced the news of his engagement to everyone. I suddenly realized that his usual protection had long been deeply rooted in my life, but I had never seen it. But no matter how much regret I had, I could only drown my sorrows in wine. George accompanied me to the beach attentively. The moonlight that night was like his constant companionship, gentle but not dazzling. I asked him if he had really thought about marriage. He did not answer directly, but just gently kissed me on the face. That was the end of all the companionship. The next day, I packed my luggage early and did not dare to face his wedding. My neighbor's words made my nose sour. To bravely fight for the love you want, you must first learn to love yourself. These simple words made me feel really heartbroken for the first time. Over the years, I have always denied myself in the eyes of others and pinned all my hopes on the recognition of the outside world. I used to curl up in a shell of inferiority, thinking that I was not worthy of being loved if I was not thin enough. But George's figure appeared again and again, and the tenderness that I ignored was now vivid in my mind. I took a deep breath, and for the first time, I had the urge to be brave for myself. Like the heroine of an idol drama, I rushed into the church. Everyone looked at me in astonishment, but I steadied my heartbeat, walked towards George, and prepared to express the feelings buried deep in my heart.
I'll never look like her, but I'm smart and kind and funny, and I'm passionate about work. I'm really weirdly good at karaoke. Josh, you should choose me. You should love me, because I love. But before I said anything, I was stunned. The George of this world no longer belongs to me, and the real him is still waiting for me in another world. So I smiled and gave my blessings, turned around and rushed out of the church. Without hesitation, I drove my sports car and slammed into the stone.
When I woke up, I found myself back in the real world, back to the fat me. But this time my eyes were more determined. I strode into the meeting room, no longer waiting for opportunities, but taking the initiative to conquer everyone with my design. I found George and teased him to stop peeking at the Spice Girls poster. He didn't say anything, just let me sit in his seat. At that moment, I realized that it was not the Spice Girls poster on his desk, but me sitting there.
I'm always looking at you.
You're such an idiot.
It turned out that what he had been looking at was never an illusion, but me, in the self that has been ignored countless times. When I learn to accept myself, the clumsy, fat but shining me, the warmth that has been ignored will eventually return in the most touching way. After all, loving yourself is the most touching chapter in all romantic stories.